It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies the same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, he was a notorious undertaker accused of misdeeds against the dearly departed. Did he also commit crimes against the living? We'll talk about The Mortician from HBO Documentary Films. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, More Like Ancient Phalians, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yes.
This is Monday's Crime Writers On.
It is.
What's coming up on Thursday's program?
On Thursday, we're going to Scotland.
Really?
Yes, we're going to Scotland to talk about the Netflix series Department Q.
Ooh, Scotland's been on my travel list for a while, Kevin.
Well, just check it off because we've been there now.
Oh, damn it. We're not really going?
No, we're not really going.
Damn it. Okay. Well, Kevin, is there something else that you wanted to mention to our audience?
Yeah, we kind of teased this a couple weeks ago when Lisa Strawn was on from the True Crime Podcast Festival, but want to make it official. The Crime Writers are going to the True Crime Podcast Festival in Boston. It's July 18th to the 20th. And you can get all the details at truecrimepodcastfestival.com. If you use code CWO, you will save 20%.
What are we doing there?
Well, we're going to do a review and
a live show.
A live show review. And I know Toby the schedule isn't out yet, but Toby is planning to do a little something from his realm. And of course, Rebecca had something from your realm, which we all know that means Karen Reed.
Yes, in Boston.
That's kind of like if we were doing this at Area 51, Toby, you'd 100% have to do something about aliens, right?
That's right. You know who's coming to join me for the Karen Reed conversation?
No, who's that?
Mel Barrett.
Mel, who has been helping you out on your...
on the Readathon. Yeah,
cool.
She's coming to join. She said she wouldn't miss it for the world. She's actually leaving a family trip to come join for that panel.
Well, dear
That's
listener,
commitment, motherfuckers.
Well, dear listener, we'd love to meet you there. We always love meeting folks, and we haven't been to the True Crime Podcast Festival since Chicago 2019, a whole pandemic ago, and so we're looking forward to meeting folks again.
You know what I remember about that trip to Chicago?
What?
That Toby had to buy a shirt. Remember that, Toby?
I did. You know what I remember from that visit?
What's that?
Being attacked by a bird.
Yes, and still not buying into the owl theory after you lived it.
Some freaking little bird just came and attacked the back of my head.
On the way back from
sure what was going on.
The Ferris wheel or something?
You know, I was eating with my family at that pier, and I was walking back, and I felt something hit me. It felt like somebody had thrown a pebble and hit me in the back of the head. So I was like, oh, God, what's going on? And I turned around and saw this bird flying away, and some people walking behind me, and I was like, did that bird just attack me.
Oh.
They're like, yep.
You had it coming.
I guess I did.
That happens in Plum Island where we vacation every summer. The piping plovers, when they're nesting, the moms dive bomb you when you walk by their nest. And it's so
they get
funny.
aggressive. Yeah.
It doesn't hurt or anything. It's just like people don't like it. Like my kids were so scared to walk in and out of the house last year, but it's just, I find it funny because they're like the size of marshmallow peeps and they're so mean.
One of the things that apparently if you have blonde or red hair, statistically you are more likely to get attacked because some of those birds prefer those colored twigs for their nests.
Interesting.
So Toby's platinum
be
hair.
more like birch.
No, exactly.
Stuff.
Yeah. This does not mean if you're a brunette, you won't get attacked.
No, you
but-
will.
Yeah,
It's happened in our neighborhood
Yeah.
many times to people.
Just the blondes, though.
People with ponytails. No, that runner lady wasn't blonde. Although the fledglings are back. I know that I said this before, but our house is right now surrounded by like 20 baby owls. There's so many. And last night I went outside and I was walking the dogs at like 8 o'clock and I heard this little, beep, the fledgling noise. I look up and this owl is looking straight down at us and it's the cutest, fluffiest little fledgling. And for a second, I completely forgot to be terrified.
Oh.
Feels like progress.
For a second.
For a second until it dive bombed you and put its little talons out.
Hi now. Who's Fluffy? He doesn't have any talents yet. All right, Kevin.
Yes.
Should we talk about the thing we're talking about on this particular podcast?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get that done. Leading off.
The scandal had huge reverberations. But after all these years, I don't think he's ever told his story. Will you get an interview with David?
Working on it.
Are you really?
In the 1980s, David Sconce took over the family funeral home business and expanded it to offer crematory services. But questions were raised among industry rivals over how Sconce was able to cremate the amount of remains he did.
Well, back then, because of the multiple cremations, see, I could cremate one guy in like 2 hours, or you could put 10 of them in there and take 2.5 hours.
Authorities learned Sconce was not only commingling bodies in the chamber, but also robbing families of their loved ones' valuables, and worse. As the revelations came to light, attention shifted to how Sconce was said to deal with his competitors.
David Sconce had this idea that if my little operation, my empire of what I've got going is threatened, I'm going to deal with it.
The HBO documentary film The Mortician digs into the scandal that rocked the funeral home industry and shocked the public. It features interviews with Sconce, investigators, and grieving family members whose trust he betrayed. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from The Mortician. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Kevin?
Yes.
This guy David, he really has the whole board covered, does he not?
He went for the trifecta. He commingled the bodies, he harvested the organs, and he ripped everybody off financially. So he certainly combined the worst of the Noble podcast and the Body Brokers podcast. Yeah, just about every bad thing you could do as a funeral director, he did, except having sex with the bodies, and
we don't know that he didn't do that.
Yeah,
He may have done that.
He might have done that, but yeah, he was a bad dude.
Yeah,
and they all knew it, right? He's just apparently one of the things we find out in sort of this first scene where they're doing all this foundational scene setting, and they go to mortician school, which I guess is like clown college, but for undertakers. And no, I'm sure it's more serious than that. And it's like, ooh, you're going to talk to David Sconce? Oh, he's like, love to hear what he has to say.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that they gave the whole history of the funeral home business and how it became professionalized and people were even dressing like doctors and bankers and lawyers when they became funeral home directors. That was super interesting. Toby, what do you think works or doesn't work about the narrative of the 3 episodes of this show?
So I thought the first 2 episodes were excellent. I liked the way they set things up where they sort of talk about how the Lamb family were sort of pillars of the community in Pasadena for several generations, and that, their funeral home was a place to go to do your funerals.
If you were anyone, right?
If you were, anybody in Pasadena.
Not just anybody could die in this county.
That's right.
If you were anyone who knows anyone, you went to Lamb. And it was like, the way they would say that was so funny. It was like people were making the choice to go to Lamb, like the dead people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so they set that up, and then they kind of set up David as a sort of black sheep in the family who brings disrepute to the family name or whatever. So you're kind of following this thinking that it's just David who's besmirching this otherwise sort of golden family. But then as the second episode progresses, and especially towards the end, you start to see these little cracks. And it's like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't just him. And then you start to realize that there's something more going on, that this is actually a generational thing, and that he was the one who, I guess, took it so far that he got busted and sort of shone a light on the whole thing. But the reality is that he was at least the second generation, if not the third generation, running the business, who was making money through the corpses. And it may have been as innocent. It may have been as little as just taking jewelry and stuff early on, but then he got into the whole, let's pack a kiln full of bodies. And, towards the end, it totally went off the rails.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good because it kind of kept you off balance enough that what in some ways, it's not really a straightforward story, but if you just told it in like this linear fashion, things sort of getting increasingly extreme as the generations progress. But instead, you kind of have this story of David, and then it's not really a twist, but it's suddenly like the window opens a little bit further, and you see what the influence is on his life and why he may have ended up doing what he did.
It reminded me a little bit about the Murdoch family, honestly. Because you had these parents that everybody sort of held up on this pedestal. They had this business that was sort of like central to the community in many ways, at least to the end of life. And then you have this like rotten kid. And in the Murdoch documentary, it was Paul, right? Who was like a real piece of shit, like driving the boat, his friend died. And, and then you find out that like the rot kind of goes up the ladder a little bit. Laura, we have actually had stories very similar to this one that we reviewed on the podcast, including The Body Brokers, which actually hit a lot of the same points and elements of this. What made this stand out or be different for you, if anything?
Well, I think it was David for me. I mean, he's a character, and like every time he opens his mouth, it just like kind of makes my blood boil. He's somebody that is completely non-remorseful. He seems like no ability to understand the gravity of what he did. He really feels like a sociopath. He's like evil Paul Newman or something. Doesn't he look like evil, like psycho Paul Newman?
He actually looks, when he's younger, he does look like Paul Newman. And now he actually looks like somebody we know. And I was like, doesn't that look like Steve D? I'll just leave it there. He looks just like him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it sets us apart having access to David just because he's entitled and he's sticking in his lane and he doesn't see the problem with this. And you know what? Like people that get upset, like bodies are bodies. That's not the person, whatever.
There's no difference in anybody's cremated ash. There's no difference. It's potash and lime. That's it. A little bit of carbon. And it's all the same. People just got to be more in control of their emotions because that's not your loved one anymore. And it never has been.
But I was also frustrated by David. And that was the other thing is I just felt like, this happened in the 80s, like the mid 80s. And this guy still has no remorse. Oh my God. I wanted to maybe have some sort of an analysis of him from somebody psychology wise in terms of like, what is going on with this guy? But then as you hear later on, when like he gets out and his former wife is talking about all the other things he did, it's like, that's just how he is. But it was just wild to me to hear his perspective.
Yeah. I mean, he has this weird no apologies, no remorse thing about him, but he doesn't come off as like psycho. He comes off as I don't even know how to say like he sounds reasonable, but because he has no guile, he just sort of is believing the things that he believes and kind of like says it in a way that you don't feel like he's conning you. You just feel like this is just what he believes, even though he's being kind of a dick about it. Like you talk about the whole thing about it's not a person anymore. People just got to get over it, which is really fucking mean. But he might be correct on this point because this was something
we talked about. This on the show.
Noble, right? About okay, well, how do we treat the dead? What do we do with their bodies in regard to the fact that they are a thing? Like, all right, what is the right way?
Why do we care so much?
Why do we care so much? It's a misdemeanor in a lot of places, but it's more of a crime against our conscience than it is against the law. But why are we so upset about it? It's a good conversation starter. I don't know if I come down on the side of like just fucking get over it because there's so much dust in the kiln here that you're not going to get all your grandpa's ashes anyway. So I stuffed 7 other people in by breaking their collarbones so they'd fit. So just get over it. But I think it's a really good conversation to have. We have had this conversation in a way that was really interesting. I mean, I was telling you we were watching this, Kevin, like if you cremated me and you got the wrong ashes, like I'm completely fucking fine with that. Whatever makes you feel good in the moment. Ooh, could it be like a celebrity's ashes? Now, granted, I know that not everybody feels that way. I don't want to be disrespectful to folks for whom this is really important. But there were times in this documentary where when David was talking, it sounded like if he was talking about but if he's talking about many other business decisions, he would seem very capitalist, reasonable capitalist. Like he's like, hey, these boxes only cost me $5. I only had to pay for propane for the thing. So it only, technically cost me like $6 to cremate someone. I would charge $55. It's a big profit margin. I'm going to undercut my competitors in the corner of the market. He's like, and then I realized I could do it even so much cheaper if I just put 10 people in at a time. It would only take 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And I could get the same, I could make so much more money. And it's like, if he were talking about, widgets, or if he were talking about another kind of business, you'd be like, yeah, that's, it's kind of greedy and gross, but yeah, I guess, you're making a case for why you did it. It's because of what the subject matter is that like puts it in another sphere for people. And I totally understand that. But at the same time, Toby, there was a detachment about the way he talked about it as if it was any kind of business. Like, for instance, when he was talking about breaking open the teeth, and he's like, everyone does that. My parents did it. Family members wanted the gold teeth back sometimes. It was almost like darkly funny. Like there was almost like a satirical, like Wes Anderson sort of aspect to it. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
The whole thing, I mean, he grew up with dead bodies, right? I mean, he grew up in the funeral business. And, if sort of the impression you get from the documentary at the end is right, like the people he saw dealing with bodies were not dealing with them in a way that was particularly reverential or, respectful or whatever. So it's not that surprising where if that was the way he was kind of brought up seeing that, he would be like, oh, well, it's just a dead body and, what does it really matter? But when people take their loved ones to a funeral home, like they expect it. I mean, it's more of a sort of fraud thing. Yeah. It seems like, it's more like, it's like if you order,
fraud, you breach your contract.
Like crafts. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But if you order an apple and you get an orange and they're like, yeah, it's, whatever.
It's still fruit.
Yeah.
What do you care?
Right. So it's kind of, if nothing else, like if you remove everything else from it, it's just like you're promising to do something and then you're doing something completely different. And then there's this whole emotional component to it for some people who you get to hear from quite a bit. He kind of felt like he had sort of the perfect storm of having parents who were, I don't know exactly what his relationship with his parents was, but the fact that they were like to his bride on the wedding day, like, are you sure you want to marry this guy? And then, his mom is going to sue him for everything he's worth after the dad died. I mean, it's just like this completely like dysfunctional family. Plus he's grown up in the funeral home business and he's seen a lot of corpses. And then he's like this good looking sort of all-American football player type who I'm sure was like very popular and, sort of looked up to in his peer group. I mean, it's just like this perfect storm to create a guy who's going to do shit like this. And he did.
Toby, when you said about you ask for an apple and you get an orange, I think, back me up on this, that's actually like what happens with dried fruit and food.
Really?
Oh,
yeah,
really?
So if you get like Quaker oatmeal and they've got the different flavors and they got apple, they got strawberry, peach. The fruit is actually dried apple.
It's all apple
with the flavor added because
interesting.
That's
the peach is apple
because when they rehydrate it, I think that's the case. But you always get what you pay for at Patreon.
Always.
We are never gonna give you an orange when you ask for an apple.
Never.
Just join us at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You get all sorts of great stuff if you join us at the leading off level.
$5 a month.
You get all sorts of exclusive content, including the Crime Writers on After show. We got an interesting double whammy this week for topics. Rebecca's going to tell us all about her adventures as a commentator on court TV.
Yes, I'm going on for the 4th time today as we tape this.
Yeah, and Laura, you came to our party this weekend. and you made some comments after a couple glasses of wine that we're gonna have to have a serious conversation about
that.
Okay. Oh, Toby, you missed it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I literally had to turn to Laura and say, "You're drunk right now, right?"
I said, "No, I'm speaking the truth."
Yeah,
I'm like
drunk.
the Oracle.
And really timely is you're going to get the Readathon, which is Rebecca Lavoie's Karen Reed centered podcast. Rebecca, today on Monday morning, the jurors returned for deliberations. Are you on pins and needles?
Yes.
Yes. And you continue to make podcasts. You can expect that once a verdict or a decision of some kind comes in, Rebecca and her special guests will be there to give you the hot takes. Unpack it all. We also have Rebecca Lavoie's The Readathon, wrapping up everything in the shocking ending to the Karen Reed trial.
Shocking.
The jury came back really quick on Friday, so we got a whole week. Rebecca, we know how you feel, but can we still expect more episodes of The Readathon on Patreon?
Yes. Next question.
All right, fine.
Kevin, there's like 108 episodes or 109. I've made this podcast had its year anniversary last week, and I've made more than 100 episodes of it. Take that, crime writers. Take that.
You've been doing that for a year? This is going on for a year? Holy shit. If you had asked me, I would have said 4 months.
I started in the middle of the trial one. And it's in the trial one, the middle of it was June of 2024. And that's when I started the Readathon, because I was telling Kevin about it every night. And he was like, we should just tape this. And I've been doing it for a year, and I've made more than 100 fucking episodes of that thing. And people love it.
Christ.
They love it.
Yeah. Well, now the Readathon is wrapping up. Married with Podcast will return. Rebecca now has the bandwidth to do this.
Yes.
Sorry we didn't give you our advice sooner.
I've been busy.
We've been busy, but it'll be there. If you join us at the Bricker scale level, you get an additional podcast. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. In the latest episode, Laura recounts her special trip to Cocaine Island.
Nice.
Yeah, so, some families, they go to Disney, Universal. I was really excited to take my son and my travel partner, Lance, to Cocaine Island. And so what's it like to travel with me on a family trip to somewhere like that?
Awesome.
How many times were they afraid I was getting arrested because I kept saying, "Where's the cocaine?"
100.
A lot. So it's pretty funny.
It's kind of amazing that even though you went on this international field trip, that Will still almost failed his true crime class and did not graduate. Fortunately, that did not happen. If you come in as a deep diver, not only do you get all that exclusive stuff, which includes Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, but you get to tune in as Toby and his guests discuss their thoughts on the latest tome. Toby, you had a really interesting discussion about the book American Fire, in which I guess none of you really liked it.
Yeah, it was funny because it got so much praise, and it was like a notable book for like NPR and the New York Times and stuff, that I was like, all right, this is one that's obviously going to be good. So I didn't really look into it too much. And then we showed up, and everybody was kind of nervous because they thought they were going to be the only one who didn't like it. And it turned out none of us liked it.
I know that feeling, going on the Toby Balls thing, that feeling of thinking I'm going to be the only one, and then everyone feels the same way except for you. I know that feeling.
I feel that way twice a week with this podcast.
I felt the same way too. I didn't really like it either.
Yeah, it seemed like the book jacket blurb would have been a better book if they had written that book, right?
Yeah, but the discussion's good. I mean, it's like crime writers. Like sometimes when the actual product you're reviewing isn't that great, the conversation can be awesome.
Oh, you mean the hater episodes? They're the best.
The hater episodes,
best.
I mean, this isn't like full-on hater because, I mean, there was some stuff in there, but it was a little sub, I would say.
Kevin, are we going to have a hater episode for the True Crime Podcast Festival?
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. Let's pick something that sucks.
Haterade, bring it.
Bring it. All right. So you can support this podcast in that way at patreon.com/partners in crime media. You can check out our Amazon storefront at amazon.com/shop/crime writers on, or just follow us on the socials, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, all the other ones, Blue Sky. We're everywhere, fortunately.
We're an equal opportunity poster.
We are.
All right, Kevin. Does thus end our eternal business section?
Thus ends the business section.
You see what I did there? Eternal.
Is that a Mortician reference?
It is. Thank you for getting it. All right. I'll go ahead and fade that music out right now.
You mean bury it?
Hey, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Our next sponsor is HelloFresh.
Hola, Fresco.
Springtime is all about spending time outside with good company and good food. Now, I'll tell you, Okay, Rebecca, you just remember, I'm going to relive this trauma from yesterday.
Oh, boy.
So umpiring a baseball game.
You're an umpire.
The home team was up 12-4 going into the 6th inning.
Then what happened?
Well, the other team came back after 4 pitching changes.
Yeah?
A whole bunch of walks. I thought
a murder? Was it a murder?
It was a murder.
What happened? What was the final score?
It was 20-12. Nice. And I only bring this up because I thought I was going home to dinner, and then 45 minutes later, I had to leave.
You were starving.
I was starving. So, how do you start making dinner at that point? You really can't.
So easy when you've got Hello Fresh in your fridge, though.
Absolutely. Some of the great meals that you can make fast. 10 minutes it takes. The cheesy chicken and bell pepper tacos.
Nice.
That was great. But they also have ready-made meals that you can make in 3 minutes, like the sweet sesame udon with chicken and red peppers. You just heat them and eat them.
I love udon.
But that doesn't mean you can't do some nice fancy stuff. Among the gourmet meals that I'm looking forward to making this week, sirloin in a mushroom sauce with caramelized onions. Oh, all right. Onion, mashed potatoes, and roasted carrots.
Nice. So feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule, even your spring umpiring schedule, and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
10FM?
CWO10FM. Do that now to get 10 free meals with a free item for life.
10FM, okay.
1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
I'm Katie Nolan, and I have a new podcast called Casuals. It's a podcast for people who like sports a normal amount. Casuals is a twice-a-week hang with me and my friends from across comedy, sports, and entertainment, where we talk about all the funny, weird, interesting stuff happening in and around the world of sports. So whether you're a diehard fan or just vaguely sports curious, Casuals is the podcast for you. You can find Casuals on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen?
So, Kevin.
Yes.
I hear that you wanted this thing we're reviewing to be a little more elevated.
Yeah, just like my Quince wardrobe.
Oh, yeah.
As temperatures rise, it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with not just summer essentials, but versatile pieces for every season ahead. Quince pieces are timeless, lightweight, and far more elevated than anything else at this price. Okay, ladies, I'm going to talk to you man to woman.
All right.
So, I know how your man likes to go to that store and buy that t-shirt for 57 cents.
Yes.
And look, there is a place for that.
Is there?
Well, like when you're changing your air filter, or maybe when you're entering a wrestling ring and you want to tear it open.
Or when you've given up.
When you've just given up. Well, that's where Quince comes in, because you can buy great things like their European linen shirts. And the dresses, of course, for the ladies.
All
but
right.
those shirts, for $30, when you're planning for that 4th of July picnic that you have to go to, and he's going to wear some goofy t-shirt or something like that, get him a nice pair of Quince tops, linen shirts, some really cool shorts, and he's going to feel better, and you're going to be like, hey, this is my man. And he's going to like it later when you say, yeah, this was my man.
That's my man.
Well, give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
So, Laura Bricker.
Yes.
We got to meet David's wife, Barbara. As Kevin mentioned, apparently at their wedding, his family members approached her and were like, you sure, girl? You sure? What'd you think about Barbara?
I just was like, oh, God, Barbara. She stuck through everything with him. She was treated terribly. She keeps going back for more. I love when they're like, he's in trial and his attorneys are getting really expensive, and she's taking care of the kids and says to his family, I need help. And they're like, you should just go on welfare. And that's not really the support she was looking for. And then, they go to the vacation home and she's thinking it's a fresh start and whatever. But before that, I want to back up because she's seeing all this stuff unfold and she's getting that funky feeling. She's like, he came home and they had that dramatic reenactment where and he went in the garage and started pulling the gold out of the teeth. And I'm like,
the cup that said AU on it.
I don't even know what AU was. Then I found him. with the cup, sitting on the floor in the garage cracking teeth with a hammer.
Yeah, and she's like, what is that? That means gold. I'm like, okay.
It's only that smart people who graduated high school can figure out what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, she goes through that. She goes through the trial. She goes through everything that's happening. And then they go to the vacation home where his creepy parents end up living next door. And he gets caught with this like bus ticket scam. And again, she's still kind of like on board with everything. And then he's the one who's like, yeah, it's really not working. And I'm like, Barbara,
I gotta trust you.
Yeah.
If I can't trust you, you're done. That's rich. That's like, fucking rich from him.
I'm like, seriously? I'm like, this poor woman. But she did it, to be fair, this was her own decision to stay. But I'm like, it's like one thing after another. And like, hello, as soon as I saw the gold teeth in the garage, I would have been like, yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm out of here. Like,
it's pretty creepy. I mean, I think that it is kind of a commitment anyway to like join a funeral family.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that.
I mean, it's like, I don't want to.
But he came, it was a commingling of funeral families. It's like when medieval royalty get together, right? You're like, well, the king of Prussia is going to marry the princess of Saxony or whatever. That's how they make the Ottoman Empire or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
It didn't escape my notice, by the way, the Lamb Funeral Home looked like a little castle. It looked like the Beverly Hills Hotel. It had that little turret. I was like, there really are royalty in Pasadena. Who knew? So, Toby, is David a liar? Is he trustworthy? Is he truthful? What did you learn from this documentary?
So one of the things I liked about the documentary is that they did a pretty effective job of sort of showing how you couldn't trust him rather than just kind of telling you. And sort of the most brutal way they did this is in the third episode. There's a thing about how he went back to jail because he supposedly stole a gun and then sold it and all this stuff. And he was like, somebody gave it to me. I just want to get rid of it. I'm not a gun person. I've never been a gun person. And then half an hour later, there's this story about how he was going, I guess, to a cemetery and some guy pulled a gun on him. And then it turns out he has a gun in his car that his wife gets. And he was talking about how he'd just been at the shooting range.
Barbara, God bless her, she's reaching over to my door because I always kept my 9mm in there because she's going to come out and cap this guy. But the gun wasn't there because I had problems at the range with the Luger shells, the casings, because they're too big. And so I was out getting a rampant throat done on it.
So it's like, okay, you clearly are just lying. That was a pretty brutal little thing they did to him. But it showed from his own mouth that he was just going to say whatever seemed like it was advantageous for him to say at any given moment. And that's just on top of all these people contradicting him as he goes along, or him like kind of trying to poo-poo things that people say and come up with like, why would I do that? This, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, because that's who you are.
Kevin, what do you think about the Tim Waters chapter of this story? One of the things I thought was interesting is that our local funeral home is the Waters Funeral Home, But here's this guy, he's gotten beaten up by the goons, right? And then he's allegedly poisoned with oleander.
Okay, so just go back a second. He's a funeral director, which is, local business guy. He has guys, he decides to get burly guys, ex-football players to help with the literal heavy lifting and all this stuff. Yeah, all that stuff, like, maybe it helps to be a little beefy, brawny to do this kind of work, but then gives him a separate job with business cards about being hard men, where they'll go around and be like street toughs and fuck people up. And so decides, well, the person I'm going to fuck up is my competitor who's probably going to blow the whistle on me. And they tooled him up pretty good.
You're so old-fashioned today, Kevin. Goons tooling up.
Get my little fisticuffs going. I don't know. There was just something very 80s archival about all of this. But the same guy they beat the hell out of, dies a couple days later. So is that sus as hell? Of course it is. But I still don't know, when they eventually brought the charges, why was he so sure that they should just dig up the body and look for this poison? Did he say do it because it was a different poison? Did he do it because he knows he didn't do it and it's just rumor and bullshit? Or, some other reason?
Did he do it because he knew that they weren't going to dig up the body? Like, is that a thing? Like, I dare you, go ahead and dig up the body. It's a fucking hard thing to do, by the way, digging up a body.
Yeah, but also, I guess after an autopsy, they just take your organs and put it in a plastic bag, like the giblets from your turkey, and just stick it in there with you? Yep, okay.
Yep, they put it, like if you have a vagina, they put it in a paper bag and they take it right next to your...
Wrap it in newspaper?
Wrap it in newspaper, put it in the fridge.
Like fish and chips.
Oh, the keepers.
So you can show it to
I'll
a
never
priest.
get over it.
Oh, the keepers. Yeah, but it's just really weird. But I don't know. I mean, people are still kind of convinced, even though he was acquitted, they still feel like, yeah, he got away with it. And I don't know, kind of feels like maybe he did do it.
What do you think, Laura? Because he kind of hints at the end that he's fucked with some people or killed some people.
That was like his, like, I want to be like Robert Durst moment. I did it. Oh, I forgot the microphone was on. Except, oh, wait, I didn't say I did it, but I did it. I was like, I don't know. This oleander poisoning part, like, just, it fascinated me. I'm like, this is like something out of like historical crime fiction or something. And it's like the first case that's been brought forward in the country that would be suspected oleander poisoning. And like, what the hell? Oleander. Like, I've heard of succinylcholine, which is like the perfect murder weapon. That's
You read a book
anesthesia.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I did ethylene glycol.
Oh, sorry.
okay.
But I know about Sucks because of you, because you've talked about it on the show before.
I talk about it a lot because it's the perfect murder weapon because it basically paralyzes you,
How,
suffocates
Laura?
you, and then metabolizes.
Why is it perfect?
Well, because then it metabolizes and it's not caught on toxicology. So
You hear that, Kevin?
Yes,
you can
I
get
know.
rid of
Shut
somebody
up.
very quickly and very easily. But back to the oleander.
Yeah.
It was just fascinating because they're like, okay, they analyze his blood samples. Yes, there is oleander in there. There is one witness who supposedly sees David slip an unknown substance into his drink at a restaurant, but they're uncertain how this actually occurred. And it could have been accidental. And I'm like, accidental? And so then I was curious about that. Apparently, oleander tea can kill you.
Oh. Don't make a tea out of it, yeah.
Don't make a tea out of
Sounds like
oleander.
Game of Thrones.
It's fascinating to me because I was like, it's not like the first thing you would think of if you were going to like kill somebody, especially as Kevin was saying, because we were kind of more in like the Jets versus the Sharks of funeral homes before this. And now we're into like oleander. Like, it doesn't really fit the MO.
Body.
I think the guy had it coming for ordering spaghetti at lunch.
Why? What's wrong with ordering spaghetti
That
at lunch?
doesn't seem like a lunch kind of thing. Give me a big plate of spaghetti.
What do they went to the Olive Garden?
I
Do
just
you
had
get the
pasta for
unlimited
lunch.
breadsticks
Uh-huh.
and soup?
Not
but-
the endless pasta bowl?
Is there an endless pasta bowl?
There is.
Oh.
Bottomless pasta bowl.
But I guess. I don't know. Toby knows.
I wouldn't know. I don't go to Olive Garden, but I do get the commercials.
You did get the
And I do
commercials.
watch the TikToks of people who bring their dads there who like to eat, and then they count how many unlimited bowls of pasta they've eaten.
You got to get at least 2. Otherwise, you don't feel like you.
Otherwise, it's not a deal.
That's right. Mullet
I like the
breadsticks?
breadsticks.
Yes.
I like salad dressing.
Well, you can buy the salad dressing at
I know.
Hannaford.
That's how I know I like it, not because I actually go to Olive Garden. So Toby, you grew up across from a funeral home. Were these the kind of shenanigans that you would see day in
Constantly.
and day out in your neighborhood?
Thugs in, thugs out. No, I was actually the son of the funeral home director. Is a friend of mine. Yeah, so I mean, it's just normally it's just like another business, right? You know, I mean, he's specially trained and he did his thing. And there would be funerals and stuff, but it didn't seem materially different than living across the street from a store or something like that.
It was.
It was, though, yeah.
Yeah, and then but it was also attached to his house, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
part of it was the funeral home, part of it was their house. And I was over their house a lot, and you never would have, you know. I mean, I obviously knew because there's a big sign in front, and I knew what they did. But if you just sort of were suddenly inside their house, you wouldn't be like, oh, this feels like it might be a funeral home. Like you didn't smell formaldehyde or something.
So you didn't wander around during sleepovers or anything. Yeah.
No, I mean, it was sectioned off. Like if you went to a funeral, you wouldn't accidentally like open a door and walk into their kitchen or something.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Did he end up going into the funeral business himself?
He did not. He
Yeah.
did not. But he did have this awesome T-shirt that said Simmons School of Embalming on it.
Oh.
And I was like, how can I get one of those things?
You can go to the
Which
school,
I never
guess.
did.
You probably
Yeah.
find one on eBay is what I'm
Probably
guessing.
could. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated by the detail because when you think about it, it's true that a lot of these funeral homes are family businesses. And I don't know what other industry you can say besides maybe like oil wells or building cars that like people successfully hand a business down like that.
Like
and
consistently.
They stay in it. I'll tell you, the funeral home that my parents used, Barry Farrell's,
met Barry.
He's great, but he also got it from his dad, John Farrell, when it was John Farrell's, and I'm sure, on and on like that.
Let me tell you something. If you're in Holyoke, Massachusetts, everybody who's anybody uses Farrell's.
You go to Farrell's if you're Irish, or you go to Messier if you're French. But the reason I bring it up is it just feels like it's the perfect environment in which this kind of corruption, these kind of shenanigans can take place, because it's an environment where misdeeds can be done with impunity. It's all relatives. And as I think it was Toby that pointed out earlier, he did it because his dad did it and his mom did it and the grandfather did it. And if they end up doing it like that, that seems to be in the ones that we get in trouble with, that we see in the news and get in podcasts and stuff. It's a family thing. And somebody just is like, well, the work's just piling up and we're going to cut corners.
Yeah. Well, listen, to be fair, our son went into the podcast business.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many corners he's cutting.
Is he pumping out 10 podcasts a day when you should only be pumping out one every?
He's using AI.
Yeah, that's right.
So Laura, at the very end, we get this really weird, very like psycho-esque shot of Paul's mother, like sitting in her front of her house, and they sort of like do it with this long lens and like zoom in on her.
Yeah,
and she just looks. She looks like she's been through some shit. Let's just leave it at that, or done some shit. What did you think about sort of the visage and the specter of his mother at the end of this?
Well, so it was interesting. Like, we had two things this week that we reviewed where you have a mother character who I feel like has had a great influence on how their adult son has turned out. So in this case, following her, she's kind of, she looks like, as one of the jurors said, just like a little librarian when she's at trial. And then somebody else describes her looking like she has a little halo over her. But actually, she's like kind of part of the mastermind behind this. And she's so cunning that when it comes time for her to go to trial, she sells David down the river and like blames it on him taking advantage of his parents. Despite all that, it's like that whole like blood is thicker than whatever, because when he gets out and they all move to the vacation home, they move right next door. It definitely left me thinking a lot about that dynamic of what it was like to be raised by her and kind of enabled in the way that she was cooking the books or whatever she was doing and signing things that were, definitely not legal, but kind of setting that example and kind of grooming David to take over. But at the same time, there's that like coldness about her that really doesn't match this sweet little personality that she has curated through the funeral home. So she was actually scary to me. She was, to me, one of the scarier characters because you look at her and it doesn't really betray what she's actually capable of.
Kevin, I'll give you the final word on this. Should a person like David give an interview for films like this? Would you advise if you knew him, or
if I were his attorney?
Yes, or if you were friends with him at the local bar and he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about really, getting out there, being in this film, and I think I'm going to fuck with the filmmakers a little bit." Would you advise your friend or client to do this?
Well, if I were his lawyer, I would tell him no. If I were the guy at the bar, I'd be like, "You fucking do it and tell me what time it's going to be on, because I want to see that." I just think he enjoys the attention. Right? He reminded me a little bit of like that guy from Fox Hollow Murders. Oh. They thought like, are you the
creeper?
The partner of this serial killer? How else could he have moved the bodies into the woods without?
Else could I have?
Yeah, right. And just kind of like really kind of getting off on it. Because he does seem to have some sociopathic tendencies here. And like at the end, the whole thing about, I got stories. I shouldn't tell you that. No, please. No, really? Okay, fine. I will. That whole thing, like, just like reads like bullshit when you're like, oh, I have something to tell you, but you really can't say. I think that's the tell that it's probably a lie. But, was he about to have a Robert Durst moment? I don't know. But
he was trying to create one, I think.
He was trying to create one, but they have given him enough rope to figuratively hang himself in this.
I'm Katie Nolan, and I have a new podcast called Casuals. It's a podcast for people who like sports a normal amount. Casuals is a twice-a-week hang with me and my friends from across comedy, sports, and entertainment, where we talk about all the funny, weird, interesting stuff happening in and around the world of sports. So whether you're a diehard fan or just vaguely sports curious, Casuals is the podcast for you. You can find Casuals on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen?
We all belong outside. We're drawn to nature, whether it's the recorded sounds of the ocean we doze off to, or the succulents that adorn our homes. Nature makes all of our lives, well, better. Despite all this, we often go about our busy lives removed from it. But the outdoors is closer than we realize. With All Trails, you can discover trails nearby and explore confidently. With offline maps and on-trail navigation, download the free app today.
Create an oasis with Thuma, a modern design company that specializes in furniture and home goods. By stripping away everything but the essential, Thuma makes elevated beds with premium materials and intentional details. Using the technique of Japanese joinery, pieces are crafted from solid wood and precision cut for a silent, stable foundation. Assembly takes just 5-ish minutes with no tools required. To get $100 towards your first bed purchase, go to thuma.co/Pandora. That's THUMA.co/Pandora.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything, to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you, from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit DSW.com today.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out The Mortician? It is on, I can say it again, Kevin, HBO. I can say that again.
No, HBO Max.
It's HBO again. They separated. It's HBO,
But they brought it
motherfucker.
back. It was Max, and then they brought back
I understand
HBO
that,
Max.
but I can say
but it's
HBO.
on HBO. Whatever.
I can say HBO.
These fucking people, Warner Brothers.
Can I just have the pleasure
You can
of
call
once
it.
again saying HBO, HBO,
HBO,
as
all
they
right.
would say in England.
All right.
Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Mortician on HBO?
So I'm going to go mild thumbs up on this. I didn't hate this. I didn't love this. And I think my issue is we've heard other stories about funeral home directors and people that work in sort of the death and dying business doing things that, you know, we think they shouldn't be doing. And some of the things they're doing are illegal. Some of the things are moral things that are horrifying when you hear about them. And I would not want that to happen to one of my loved ones. But I think my challenge here was that a lot of time has passed since this initial crime. And yes, now the new thing is we have access to one of the key players through these interviews, which are really interesting. But at the same time, in all that time that has passed, I wish there was a way to spin this forward or do some sort of like analysis or something to give a different context just than like, oh, here's another family-run funeral home doing stuff they shouldn't be doing to bodies, and this is really disturbing, and the person in charge is pretty freaking creepy. So I'm a mild thumbs up. I guess if you are somebody that would rather watch something than listen to a podcast about this, maybe this is for you.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Mortician?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just like a pretty solid thumbs up. I mean, I think, at least to my mind, the answer to Laura's question about like, couldn't you come up with like a different angle or whatever, I kind of feel like the family dynamic stuff was sort of the different angle. I thought the way they handled that was very interesting without going into much detail for this spoiler-free thing. And I think the combination of voices they have are able to give you a pretty good picture of both what was happening and then also what people were thinking about while it was happening. And sometimes, you know, I feel like we go into these things and you're like, what kind of slippery slope ended up in this complete catastrophe? And it felt like in this, like you got a pretty decent idea of how all that stuff kind of came about. So I think for those two reasons, I thought it was a little bit different and better than the other sort of, you know, not being nice to corpses things that we've
That's the genre?
experienced. Yeah. So yeah, it's not like a huge thumbs up, but it's a solid thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm going to go mild thumbs up on this as well. It's an interesting story about an unreliable narrator. It doesn't work without David Sconce, I think. It was well-paced and interestingly told. There was some really good historical perspectives to it. I mean, do you find out anything new that you might not have known if you read the true crime book? I'm not certain. But to hear it straight from him and the way that he says it, does remind me of a couple of other things that we've seen where you bring in the central figure and they show you who they are. So for that, I'm giving it a thumbs up.
I'm giving it a thumbs up too, which surprised me because when we started watching it, I was just like, oh, this is just like Body Brokers and Noble. And I didn't think Noble was particularly great. I know people love that podcast. I didn't get it. But what you get in this that you don't get in Noble is the guy who did it. It's not a spoiler. It's right in the first couple minutes of the show. They tell you you're going to talk to the guy who did it. And his take on it, to me, is actually very conversation starting. Like, it made me hit pause and turn to you and be like, it's interesting. And there's a lot more there, too, besides just his, frank take on everything that he did, which he did do, by the way. There's any doubting that. Yeah, so I like this a lot better than I thought I would. And so, yeah, thumbs up for me for The Mortician. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week.
Crime of the Week!
It may get you into the store for deep discounts on bulk purchases, including 5-gallon jars of pickles, but it will not get you on an airplane. TSA is trying to refute an internet rumor that a Costco card is a valid form of ID at airport security. The agency took it seriously enough to post on social media. They remind domestic passengers the only acceptable forms of photo ID are a real ID compliant driver's license, a passport, military ID, or a permanent resident card. Anyone presenting a pass from the wholesaler will be turned away. Surprise! It's not clear whether anyone has shown up at a checkpoint with a Costco card or whether TSA is just trying to head off any problems. They say, quote, "We love hot dogs and rotisserie chickens as much as the next person, but please stop telling people their Costco cards count as real ID because they absolutely do not." So panel, here's another example of misinformation on the web. But what is the next internet conspiracy theory involving Costco? Laura Bricker?
I don't know. So I don't shop. I don't think I've ever even been to a Costco.
Because you don't have the card.
We don't really have them. We have Sam's.
We have BJ's.
Yeah.
So I just looked up like what's super popular at Costco. And apparently you can buy a 72-pound wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese at Costco.
You can make that pasta right in the wheel?
So perhaps the next conspiracy is it's actually only 60 pounds.
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe they're mismarking the cheese or something.
Metric system. Yeah.
Toby, what do you think is the next internet conspiracy theory involving Costco?
So I was a member of BJ's for a couple of years for the diapers when kids were babies because it just paid for itself. I don't know. It's like that 10-gallon thing of mayonnaise. Not really mayonnaise.
What do you think, Kevin, is the next internet conspiracy theory involving Costco?
You know when they have the people who are doing the free samples?
Yeah.
And you walk by, the Soylent Green is people!
Oh, I thought you were going to say that the people at Costco actually are involved in a vast conspiracy to frame Karen Reed. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, but I don't know. Maybe next time.
All we know is that he wasn't hit by a car.
Do they do bulk cremations there?
Get a good deal, yeah.
All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you to say hi on social media, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky and see what my killer cat Zelda has been up to this week.
What about you, Toby? How can folks find you?
At Toby Ball NH on Blue Sky.
And Kevin Flynn, how can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On, including on TikTok and Instagram and all the other good places. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the really terrific, very, very good editor, Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is sitting next to me, and his name is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet, our New Hampshire basement, where, I'm going to tell you, Kevin, we also order spaghetti for lunch.
Ew, gross.
All the time. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Her special trip to Cocaine Island.
Nice.
Do you want me to commentate on that?
Sorry,
Okay. I was waiting for you to. I was like, okay, because I always try to not talk over. So Cocaine
I
Island.
like how you said you try to not talk over us.
Oh my God, you
I'm
always
working
try
on
to
it.
not talk all over us?
I'm working on it. It's
All
one of my
right,
new
we appreciate it.
resolutions.
We appreciate it.
Resolution.
Partners in Crime Media.
I'm Katie Nolan, and I have a new podcast called Casuals. It's a podcast for people who like sports a normal amount. Casuals is a twice-a-week hang with me and my friends from across comedy, sports, and entertainment, where we talk about all the funny, weird, interesting stuff happening in and around the world of sports. So whether you're a diehard fan or just vaguely sports curious, Casuals is the podcast for you. You can find Casuals on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen?
At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
From building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.
Some say Odoo Business Management software is like fertilizer because of the way it promotes growth. Some say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk, scaling with you while being magically affordable. And some say Odoo's programs for manufacturing, accounting, and more are like building blocks for creating a custom software suite. But I say Odoo is all of it. Fertilizer magic beanstalk building blocks for business. Yeah, Odoo. Exactly what every business needs. Sign up at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.